The F1 Focus Podcast with Envia Velman and Hendrik Vervoort. The F1 Focus Podcast with Envia Velman and Hendrik Vervoort.
Welcome back to Formula One Focus, our podcast with Hendrik Vervoort, Formula One journalist. And Hendrik, welcome back. And not much has happened, but still, this weekend is the Brazilian Grand Prix, which always delivers.
Well, I tell you, I cannot wait for this weekend's Brazilian. Well, the correct name, of course, is the São Paulo Grand Prix because it's backed by the city of São Paulo. So that is the official name. A lot of people are going to call it the Brazilian Grand Prix, and there's going to be confusion. But the correct name for the race is the São Paulo Grand Prix. And basically, nothing of any serious consequence happened over the last week, apart from Charles Leclerc getting engaged, and congratulations to him. So one of these days we're probably going to see a wedding also, but I think news-wise not much really. So I think we're looking forward to what could be a very, very crucial race in terms of the Drivers' Championship this weekend.
Well, of course, the big news is that Lando Norris is now leading the championship by 1 point. And Max Verstappen has reduced the gap from 104 points just the other day to 36 points, which is basically nothing. It's less than Lando was trailing him last year. Lando, I think, trailed him by 47 points going into the Brazilian Grand Prix. He didn't manage to catch up, but Max is a different animal. I see today somewhere he said that the developments in the cars allowed them to make some more aggressive adjustments to it. The car can now be more on the nose, as we know he likes it. And that's ominous, I would think.
Yes, and we've mentioned, or we've touched on that, before, and that is that the key apparently has been that the team or the engineering group in the team at Red Bull have been listening to the driver, to Max, more intently about his preferences and what he suggests to be, should be done to the car to improve the performance, and in comparison to before the Laura Meki's arrival, in other words, the Christian Horner era, which makes one think, where did the priorities lie those days? But anyway, so they're listening to the driver. He knows what he wants. He knows what works, and they're providing him with those tools, and it's working. And that is, also Helmut Marko has been saying that, they're listening to the driver much more now, so therefore the performance has improved. And one wonders why that wisdom has been absent for such a long time. 36 points for Max Verstappen to clinch his 5th World Championship. There's 116 points still on the table. We've got 4 races to go, 4 Grand Prix races and 2 sprints. So 25 for a win and 8 for a win in the sprint. So that's 116 points on the table. Only 36, separate the top 3. So anything to play for. I know where I put my preference at the beginning of the season. It's still there, Oscar Piastri. Not preference. That was
prediction.
I expected him. My expectation was that he would win. I don't really have a preference. I think if we have a battle until the final corner of the final lap of the final race, like we had in Brazil in 2008, and in fact like we had in Abu Dhabi in 2021, but please not under such circumstances as in 2021. If we have the conclusion of this battle on the final corner of the final lap in Abu Dhabi, that would be absolutely fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I don't really then care which one of the 3 is the driver's champion. If Max does it, it will be an absolutely remarkable comeback, as you've mentioned. It's never been done before. From that far back, and the 5th consecutive title that equals the 5 consecutive titles of Michael Schumacher. But if either Oscar or Lando wins the title, it will be brilliant as well. A British champion in the case of Lando, again, cannot be bad for the sport. McLaren coming back, with a double championship, that will be great for the sport. And Oscar, an Australian drivers champion ever since, what was it? It was Alan Jones in 1980, was it?
Yep.
So, from all those points of view, it will be absolutely great whoever wins the title. So, and I think this weekend in Sao Paulo is going to be one of the really crucial events.
You just mentioned that 2008 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And
but then it was the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Whatever it was called, it was on the Sao Paulo track.
Yes.
The point I'm making is Felipe Massa has now taken the FIA to court because of that year's championship not going to Lewis Hamilton. after the crash gate at Singapore. We'll talk about that just a bit later, so I want to make that point. Yeah. What I'm concerned about is pressure. Like I said to you just before we started recording, this weekend Brazil is very unpredictable. Like last year we saw the qualifying be moved to Sunday. The race was an absolute shambles. Max was brilliant in winning it as well. Yeah. Alpine suddenly jumped from 8 to 6 because of a single result. And then after this weekend, there's a triple header coming up. So pressure is going to be relentless until the end of the season. And I'm worried about those two McLaren drivers in terms of how good they can handle pressure. Lando, I suppose, a little bit more. Oscar seems to have wilted a little bit under the pressure, seems to have struggled adapting to the different tracks. Like you said last time we spoke, he likes a track with a bit more traction on it, likes more grip. Lando likes a little bit of a looser car. I'm worried about those two drivers being able to stand up to I'm always picturing in my mind this Jaws music playing and this shock hunting down these two poor McLaren drivers, because honestly, that's what I'm thinking. Max on your tail, it's not something to sniff at.
Absolutely. And I think it's probably easier in terms of pressure to put the pressure on than to have to absorb the pressure. I would imagine. I've never been in a situation like that. But, Max knows how to put the pressure on. He's got nothing to lose, really. He's got everything to win. And to put on the pressure. And, he's been absolutely brilliant at Interlagos, especially in the wet. And that is what we're expecting this weekend. Not necessarily a wet Grand Prix itself on the Sunday, but a wet weekend, which includes a sprint. And that means only one practice session on the Friday when it could be wet. And that means the sprint qualifying on the Friday, evening our time, when it could be wet. So that could throw things up in the air. Saturday morning, you've got the sprint race, and that could also be wet. And very windy. Apparently, the expectation is that the wind could blow, and this is from the FIA. It's not just from anybody else. FIA's prediction is winds of up to 75 kilometers an hour. If you know how strong that is, I mean, can you imagine what that would do to a Formula One car if it comes from the side, or even from behind? From the front, it would be great, lots of downforce, but from behind, it's going to push it forward. It's going to,
and they're notoriously fickle. They're sensitive to wind changes, isn't it?
And of course, the Lagos circuit is very undulating, and you travel in virtually all four directions over one lap. Not virtually, you do. You go both east and west and north and south, during the course of a lap. So it doesn't matter where the wind comes from, it's going to affect you at some point. And that's expected to be on Saturday, strong wind. Friday, Saturday, the expectation is for mild to warm conditions, the ambient temperature around about the mid-20s. And then all of a sudden, apparently, according to the prediction, it's going to be cold on Sunday. Underneath 20 degrees, 18, 19 degrees ambient temperature on Sunday. So that's a complete different condition than what the drivers would have been used to. It's not expected to be wet during the Grand Prix on Sunday evening our time, but it's going to be cold apparently. And so, what a mixture of conditions for the drivers over the 3 days to get used to and to handle and to deal with, in all the sessions. Just one practice session and every other session is competitive. So this is going to be something of a test for all of them.
Remember in Austin, the wind was blowing in one direction the entire weekend, and on race day it went 180 degrees the other way. Everybody was caught out by that. And I said, but this is even more unpredictable that you're talking about now. Talking about pressure, I wouldn't want to be in any of those shoes. Yeah. Listen, Red Bull has decided to postpone their driver announcement for next year a little bit. Yuki Sato apparently is now only within 2/10 of Max on a qualifying lap, which is not bad at all. Do you think there's a chance he will stick around?
Yeah, look, I don't know what's going on with. They did say that they were going to make an announcement round about Mexico. That didn't happen, and in fact, Lauren Mekis did say that they have decided to postpone their decision about their driver lineup for next year. I don't know whether they are sure or unsure about Yuki's abilities. He might be close to Max in terms of one lap pace, but he's not really delivering in terms of race results. He's not there to protect Max or to have an effect on the two McLaren drivers. He did try last time out in Mexico, and I think for a lap or two he was able to keep the McLaren behind him. But then, was it Oscar? Yeah, I think it was Oscar on his way up. He got past. So he did try to play the role, but because he was so far back in the field, he cannot really play, a tail gunner role. So Yuki, yeah, he might be quick enough, but that's not showing in qualifying, and it's certainly not showing in the races and the races results and the tactics that they can use him for in terms of to try and help Max in his quest for his 5th title. So I don't know why they are unsure about that. I suspect they are unsure about the replacement. Who are they going to replace him with?
Hajar.
Is it going to be Isaac Hajar? Many people, and me included, think that's going to be too early. It's going to be far too much of a deep end throw in for him, especially with a new car, new dispensation, new engines, everything. Could it be one of the Racing Bull drivers? Who knows? Well, the other Liam Lawson, the other Red Bull driver. So I think it's probably more a question of, if we don't use Yuki next year, who are we going to use? So they're not in a position to make a decision in that regard yet. There's still 4 races and 2 sprints to go. Maybe one of the 2 Racing Bull drivers, more so, I think Liam Lawson could show that he's a viable alternative, because he has been in that car. But anyway, so I don't know. I really don't know what's the story there.
Another team that still needs to finalize its driver setup is Alpine. And remember last year, Franco Colapinto in his Williams had that huge crash on I think just before the final corner, or just after this, that last, after the start there. Lots of South American supporters. I know there's a lot of money behind him. Do you expect him to stay on at Alpine? The idea was initially for Jack Doohan to sit out for 5 races, give Colapinto a bit of a chance and make a decision. Colapinto seems to have the inside track there. But suppose because of money, what are you expecting on that for that position?
Well, he hasn't really, set the scene alight, hasn't he? But I suppose the finances play a big role, and of course, Alpine is not going to be a manufacturer's team or works team anymore next year. They're going to run with Mercedes customer engines, so I think money probably plays a bigger role there than it would have done had they still been the official works team. But I don't know really if they have an alternative to him. I mean, He's made a lot of mistakes, but he's also been quick. He's been inconsistent. But I don't really know whether they've got an alternative there. So I don't know what to expect. Jack Doohan, unfortunately, if he didn't get a quick call back there, I don't think he's got any chance of getting that seat again.
I must be honest with you, I think that's what happened with Liam Lawson. I think Liam Lawson's going to be shown the door, and Arvid Lindblad's going to step into his shoes at Racing Bulls. I think that's what's going to happen.
I think he was very impressive in Mexico in the pre-practice one.
Especially when he missed those marshals. That was very impressive as well.
So I'm talking about Lindblad.
Oh, Lindblad, sorry, I missed. Oh, yeah, of course, in FP1. I remember, you're right. Sorry, man, I missed that. Okay. Listen, I'm looking forward to this race. Lots to look forward to. Next week, we're going to have a lot to talk about after the race. But the other news this week, obviously, it's all about the FIA. The first one is Felipe Massa's court case going ahead now. Pre-trials being held. What exactly is he claiming? What's it all about?
Just before that, I just quickly want to also mention that for something else to look out for this weekend is Bortoleto. He's going to be his first home race, obviously. So he's going to get a huge amount of support. It's something to look out for, and if he can score any points on Sunday, it will be something absolutely amazing. I mean, for pure crowd atmosphere. Very few other places, maybe Monza, not maybe, definitely Monza, but Sao Paulo Interlagos is one of the top venues for crowd for crowd atmosphere. I was fortunate to go there twice, and it was absolutely unbelievable to see the crowds now, how supportive and how noisy they are and how passionate they are. So it is something really special also to see this weekend. Okay, so one Brazilian that's been in the limelight the last week was, as you say, Felipe Massa, who now finally has had his hearing in the London High Court about his claim that he should have been the 2008 Formula One world champion and not Lewis Hamilton. And he claims that because he says he was cheated out of that because Renault at that time got involved. Now, I don't want to go into all the detail of Crashgate again, but they manipulated, he says, the result of that race, and so therefore it was unfair, and he lost the title chase to Lewis Hamilton by 1 single point. And had the FIA and Bernie Ecclestone done anything about that race, then he would have been the champion, and he would have been able to benefit financially, and that's basically what it is all about. He wants to get compensation as the 2008 Drivers' World Champion. And what basically happened last week was that his case was now brought to the High Court, but it was a pre-trial hearing. It was a full trial. So basically what happened was that the court called the two parties, Massa on the one hand, and the defendants, let's call them the defendants, that's the FIA, Formula One, and Bernie Ecclestone, to the court to hear their cases. Basically, it was to find out whether, both of them are bringing the same weapon to the same fight. The court has to decide, is the one party coming to a potential fight with a knife, and it's a gunfight, or is he bringing a gun to the gunfight where the other party also has a gun? And then the court will then decide, okay, if your weapons are of equal value, then we will have a fight. So basically, it's a pre-trial, and the judge heard all the arguments from both parties or from both sides, and he is now going to decide whether there are grounds enough for a trial, and that decision has not yet been made, and the trial obviously has not yet been set. Has not been set. So basically, I just quickly want to go through what the cases are for what Felipe I cannot find that now, but anyway, so
Felipe
that's basically
Massa.
what it is, what Felipe Massa is bringing. So he's saying, what he's saying is that I should have been champion. The court must declare me as the champion for 2008. I don't want to nullify Lewis Hamilton's title.
Okay.
Yeah, he says he doesn't want to strip Lewis from it. All he wants is the court must acknowledge that he is the rightful champion, and that the court must therefore acknowledge that there are two champions in 2008. He's not asking the court to interfere in the outcome of the championship. He's not asking the court to nullify the result of the Singapore Grand Prix. He's not asking the court anything like that, because the court doesn't have any jurisdiction. Everybody knows they cannot do that. You cannot now retroactively change the result of the championship so many years later. Basically what he's saying is, please just acknowledge that I should have been the champion, and based on that I should be paid, I think it's $80 million or something that he says that he would have earned had he been the champion. So I'm no lawyer, but I do find it, let's put it this way. I will be very surprised if the court actually, decides that there are enough grounds for a full court hearing. Just if you look at it, how can you on the one hand say, I don't want you to strip this one guy of the title, but and on the other hand, I should be the champion. The one doesn't include the other. You cannot have two champions. It's not a tandem. It's not a bicycle tandem championship, or a canoe championship where you've got two guys rowing the same canoe, where you have two champions, or where you have a tennis, doubles champion pair. These guys are not competing in pairs, so you cannot have two champions. And how the court can decide, okay, there's enough grounds that he should also be acknowledged as the champion. So we have two champions in 2008. That simply doesn't make sense to me. So from a legal point of view, I don't know how one could make that legal case, and how the court could accept that. If it does, then it's going to be interesting to see eventually, when that trial happens, how the court will come to a conclusion based on the full arguments of all the parties involved. So, okay, it's just something that's happening on the sidelines. It won't have any effect now, and it's just something that I think the sport doesn't need. And that's probably a good lesson that, please do not, if you are in charge, and if you are the president of the FIA, or anybody in charge of Formula One, for instance, if you know or think that there's something underhand going on, or something has happened that shouldn't have happened, don't try and cover it up, because that is what happened. They did cover up Max Mosley and Bernie Ecclestone at that point, and Herbie Blash, I think, was a technical guy. But they felt that they didn't have sufficient evidence to actually open an investigation. The evidence only came out afterwards, when Nelson Piquet Jr. actually admitted to the fact that they did they did manipulate the outcome of that race. But that was a year later when he didn't get the seat at Renault. So at the time when something could have been done during 2008, there wasn't enough or sufficient evidence, for the powers that be to actually come to a conclusion that they can do an investigation. But anyway, so let's hope that something like that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's a bit of a long
Nothing
shot.
to do with teams calling drivers to pass each other, and that's not underhand. That is normal. That's normal practice.
Yeah. Right. The other news in FIA, Laura Villa, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She was intending to stand against Mohammed bin Sulayem. She announced it in September. And then she came up against some archaic rules you explained to us just now. And now she's called for an emergency hearing in the Paris court, which has now been granted. It's sort of, I don't know what's going to happen, stop it or postpone the election. What's the story there?
Well, she's basically saying that the court in Paris, or the French High Court, I think I'm not sure what the actual title of the court is, but it's the equivalent of the High Court in France or in Paris. That she's bringing a case that the court should postpone the FIA presidential election, which is due in December. And now the FIA is a French body; it's registered in Paris. Also in Geneva and Switzerland, but in Paris. So the court probably, I would imagine, does have the jurisdiction to declare or to at least postpone the election. And the grounds that she's bringing are also very interesting. Again, I'm no lawyer, but basically what the situation is that the regulations for the presidential election of the FIA stipulate that any candidate that wants to stand for the position of president must have a full team of vice presidents, and those members of that team must come from various regions in the world, you have to have a full team, and there's a specified number that you have to have. If you want to stand as a presidential candidate, you have to have a vice presidential team. And those people will then be on your ticket, and if you are elected, then they will become, the vice presidents of the various departments and so on of the FIA. But the problem is that for more than one candidate, or at least for more than one candidate to stand, in other words, the current president, if he wishes to continue, as we have the case at the moment, and anybody wants to oppose him in the election, both of them must have this full team behind them. Mohammed bin Sulayem does have a full team from all the various regions, but the problem is that in one region, there's only one person that qualifies to be a vice president. And that person is already on the ticket of Mohammed bin Sulayem. And that is Bernie Ecclestone's wife, Fabiana, from South America. So that means that if there's only one person coming, eligible or qualifying in that region, no other candidates can actually stand, because they will then not have somebody from South America in their team. And, this is not something that's brought about by the current president, as far as I understand. But the thing is that, apparently in the South American election process, when the South American group of FIA members had to choose which person they're going to put forward, or persons they're going to put forward as candidates, they only chose the one. And therefore nobody else can be a candidate for the presidential election, because they don't have anybody from South America. And that is what Ms. Villas is saying, that this cannot be a democratic election, because nobody can oppose the current president. Therefore, there will not be an election. And that's a bit of a conundrum, because what do you do now? You cannot now all of a sudden change, the rules and the regulations, or force the thing through to get more people that are eligible to stand, as vice presidents. I don't know what they're going to do, but it is a situation that the FIA brought itself into, and that they are paying the price for now. It cuts the credibility of the organization, and all claims of transparency and democracy and openness and governance for the people, so to speak, in FIA parlance, that will be undercut, and that will be undermined, really, if you don't have a democratic election. So it's an unfortunate situation for the FIA to be in. It's not something that is really going to affect the sport, Formula One. As a whole, Formula One is only a part of what the FIA does. The FIA does much more than just Formula One. But it is still, it's a world governing body, and one would like to have a credible and authoritative world governing body, because they set the rules and the regulations, and they, in terms of Formula One, they are the guys who make the referee decisions during races and whatever. So you would like to have a body that one can believe in.
That's credible. Right. I'm looking forward to this race, because even though it's in South America and they're actually, behind us in terms of time, it's actually not a bad time. At 7 o'clock Sunday night, we can watch the sprint races. It's at 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon. The qualifying for the main race is Saturday night at 8, which might clash with some rugby matches. But I mean, it's not too bad. It's not like last time.
Who cares about rugby?
Some people
it's only Sia's 100th.
Yeah. But at least that game only starts at 10, so I can watch the race and the qualifying, and then I can watch the rugby afterwards. Wonderful. I don't know if I'm going to stay awake for all of that, but anyway, there we go. Thanks, Hendrik. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm excited. I want to see how this pans out towards it. Like you said, I think it's shaping up to be a cat fight right to the last corner of the last lap, and that's exactly what we want. Thank you.
Well, I think we will have much more to talk about and leave the politics and stuff behind for next week anyway.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate it, as always. Talk to you soon.